You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Wednesday, November 1st. The 49ers are officially in their bye week after a strong finish to the trade deadline. Joining me to talk about the 49ers through the first 8 weeks of the season and what to expect for the second half of the season is 2/3 of your favorite Wednesday morning crew. We're missing Wayne today, but it's still lit. We're still going to have fun. I got John Chapman with me. How's it going, John?
Man, I mean, after yesterday, you wake up, the sun is brighter. It's not even up yet. I think it might be up here. The sun is brighter. The coffee tastes better. And the chat, I'm excited. Love what's going on over there. And it's just wonderful to be with you. We miss Wayne. He's the best of the best. But this is a good time for the 49ers because you come off those 3 straight losses. Everybody was, this is rough. And you make this exciting new trade. You pump a bunch of hope and excitement into the franchise, into the fan base. And I'm pumped to be here with you, Steph.
Yeah, I'm pumped too. I see a lot of people in the comments are feeling good today, dropping the CCs and the hashtag 49K in the comments. Keep it coming, guys. We really appreciate it. And yeah, I mean, the 49ers did lose their 3rd straight in a row against the Bengals Sunday, but like I said, like it feels like the arrow is pointing up for this team after the 49ers made the trade for Commanders pass rusher Chase Young before the trade deadline, now heading into their bye week. Before we go any further with that, I want to know, John, what are your overall thoughts on this trade?
Man, it was awesome. I didn't think Chase Young was going to be a possibility, especially after the Montez Sweat trade. Yeah. And, John Lynch just a while ago, Matt Miyoko tweeted out, he didn't think this deal was getting done whenever he went to bed the night before. He thought it was done and, nothing was going to happen. And this is kind of a testament to how John Lynch has handled the trade deadline. Yeah. He's not overpaying for a player. He puts out what they think they're willing to give up. And if they don't take it, then we move on. And we saw that with Jalen Johnson. But you got Chase Young, a proven pass rusher that has 2 elite years. The injury definitely slowed things down for a 3rd-round comp pick. Essentially what we spent for Cameron Latu. It's just very difficult to find a negative about this trade because you got him like pennies on the dollar. Right. He's young. You get to control what happens. Will he be here long term? That's another question. The 49ers got better this year at their biggest deficit, in my opinion. Some people would say corner, and I understand that. But I think the defensive end pass rush has been almost non-existent outside of Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa hasn't even been Nick Bosa.
Yeah, I agree. And this season so far, Chase Young has 38 pressures. The pressures thing is so weird because I saw like 3 different sites have like 3 different pressure numbers. Yeah. It's a very subjective stat. But anyway, on PFF at least, he has 38 pressures and 6 sacks. So he's already the 49er sack leader. He just joined the team, right? And he missed week 1. So there can only be good things to come of that. Career high right now, 17.2% pressure rate this season. And he'll be exactly 2 years removed from his ACL tear injury later this month. November 14th, 2021 is when he suffered that injury. And a lot of people say, like, after the 2 years, that's when you really start to feel like yourself again. You regain some of that burst that you had. And, I was watching some of the clips that people have so graciously started to cut up and put on the timeline. And, I see the burst, right? And a lot of the times with Washington, he's rushing out of the 2-point stance. I don't know if I figure that might change with the 49ers, but still you see that burst, you see that, explosiveness off the line. And I think that's definitely going to help this defensive line going forward. I love it. Just some weeks ago, like we were talking about the Randy Gregory trade, right? And how great the value was for him, given the potential reward and what you could get out of it. And I see this one as a greater value and a greater potential reward, of course, because the caliber of player that Chase Young is. I think it was definitely the type of move that lets the fans feel better about the direction of the team going forward. Now, it isn't going to be the magic pill. It isn't going to be the silver bullet that like magically fixes everything, right? Steve Wilks still has a lot to figure out about what's going on here with this defense. I mean, like you can definitely argue that he has even less wiggle room and excuses here going forward. I was talking with Weston Smith yesterday on the show about this, and he said he thinks this move could make Steve Wilks' seat even hotter and make his leash shorter, because if you fail after this, it's like, hey, like you're not doing so great with the guys that you have. You have a lot of star players. You're not doing great, but look, we're going to give you one more player. But if you can't figure it out after this, like I don't really know what to tell you. I don't think like they can make a positive case for keeping him much longer should this not work out, right?
Yeah, it's weird because when has a top 5 defensive coordinator been fired? And if you look at the numbers, that's where the Niners still are. Those first 5 weeks were incredible. And yeah, the last 3 were terrible. No doubt about that. Not going against that. But we haven't seen this front office knee-jerk react and fire people in the season. We just don't see that. So obviously Kyle's voiced frustrations, in front of the mic, which I don't like. Nick Bosa has voiced frustration in front of the mic, which I don't like. That's, again, these are things that have not been about who we are, who the 49ers are, since Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch showed up. Now, having said all those things, we still got the best record over the past 4 years this time. So I'm not one of those, yeah, let's fire him and get him out of there. Like you could definitely like change some assignments and responsibilities, but Steve Wilks brings a lot to the table. Have we seen all of that yet? No, we haven't. We're 8 weeks in, but you got to remember, like, this is the same DC. This is the same coach that, dominated early on, and you can get back there. I think the players, my favorite quote of the week, there were 2 of them, but one was Fred Warner, where he's like, players win games, not coaches. I truly believe that. The coaches can put the players in a wonderful position. The personnel has been rough. Isaiah Oliver has been rough in coverage. Terrible. He's been great in the run game, just not covering well at all. So how are you going to handle that? The Niners released not 1, but 2 corners today. So I fully expect we're going to get some reinforcements, which I'm excited about. So I don't know about the hot seat. Yeah, it is hot. It is. But I don't think that the fan base is always quicker to get rid of people than this organization. And I think that's going to hold true here.
Yeah, I remember there was a point in time in which this fan base, wanted to fire D'Amico Ryans.
Yes.
So look,
Yes.
but even then, the defense does look a lot different than it did then. And I'm seeing a lot of comments kind of saying the same thing. Like, let's just go back to basics. Like, let's just have these guys who are all stars, just go back to what they do best. And I certainly agree with that. I don't think it needs to be rocket science or anything. I don't think you need to reinvent the wheel or make all these, different tweaks here and there. I understand it's been an adjustment, I think, for Steve Wilks to kind of come into the situation and be asked to, not change anything. But then, like, I don't know at what point we did start to see those changes. Like, maybe it's when, they weren't getting home with 4, but I mean, something's got to give, right? And something's got to go back to what it was before. I don't really know if we know like the solution. It's probably not just one thing, right? But this can't hurt. Definitely. This can't hurt.
Definitely. It helps. And for the people like, oh, we got to stop blitzing. We blitzed 5 times in the Bengals game. 5 times. We blitzed 9 in the Vikings game. It's not like we're the timing of those blitzes. And I've been pretty big on this. We have telegraphed our coverage a little bit more than we have in the past, and I think that's a big issue. Laurie, it was awesome hanging out this week. He came out and partied with us a little bit at the tailgate, which was really cool. I'll say this. Yeah, things need to change, but players got to step the hell up. They got to. Yeah. And whenever you're having, Dre Greenlaw's playing through an injury, hopefully he gets rest. Nick Bosa can't win a one-on-one. We were blitzing 4. Yeah. I don't know what basics we got to get back to that we didn't do against Cincinnati. Players just didn't show up. And Shanahan even came out. They looked tired. They looked slow. I'm not sure how much of that's on Wilks, but we got to have a scapegoat. Seems like he's it. The public has brought out the pitchforks we'll see how it goes. Hopefully we rebound nicely like the team we're supposed to be. And I personally want Wilks around. I love his personality. I love who he is. And I think he's a hell of a coach. Just haven't seen that fruit the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, I agree. And I do want to touch on that actually, because I'm looking at the defensive line now and it looks like a bunch of stars, right? You look at this and you think, okay, no excuses for sure. They got two number 2 overall picks in Chase Young and Nick Bosa. They got a number 4 overall pick, a number 14 overall pick, a number 17 overall pick on this defensive line. So no excuses.
Is that 5 first-round picks? Is that Kinlaw, Farrell, Young,
Yeah, that's 5.
Armstead, Bosa? 5 first-rounders.
Yeah.
You got the talent. It's there.
Exactly. It's there. And so like the point that I want to make here, like you got Bosa, Armstead, Hargrave, and now Chase Young as your starters. That now gives you like pretty good depth now at this point. And the story of the 49ers defensive line in years past, especially last year, was they have so much depth and that allowed them to rotate guys, keep them fresh, and they all benefited from that, right? So Nick Bosa played every single defensive snap against the Bengals on Sunday. First
not the
time in
way
his
to go.
career that he's ever done that. And like I get it. Like a part of it is like, well, we're not generating enough pressure to even make the case for him to not be out there, right? Like he needs to be out there because we're not getting anything without him. He's our best chance. But yeah, I mean, when you hear Kyle Shanahan then say like, you know, guys look tired, and you know maybe guys are burnt out at this point in the season, it's week 8. Like that's concerning, right? So now the one thing that I'm feeling like not a lot of people are bringing up about this Chase Young move is that it potentially allows you to go back to a more balanced rotation because it has worked for them in the past. Again, I'm not saying this is going to be the silver bullet that's going to fix all of their problems,
Right.
but that could be one of the things that helps keep them fresh and helps keep them, you know, looking good out there, especially like the depth guys. We've had, so now Clinton Farrell becomes, you know, a depth guy who can go in and be rotational. Randy Gregory too, Kinlaw, you know, so they're on spot duty now. And we've been talking about how Kinlaw has looked, you know, much improved on spot duty this year. So that's just an example of how, you know, those guys could benefit. And of course, Bosa, Young, Armstead, Hargrave, those guys could also benefit from taking a few snaps off here and there.
Yeah, and I think you're putting players back where they should be. You know, it wasn't Javad Kidlaw's fault that he got drafted where he did. That's not his fault. It's not Cleveland Farrell's fault that he got drafted where he did. But now, you know, they've had to elevate at times with the Niners to play above their pay grade. Like, that's just not who they are. Cleveland Farrell's a decent player, and he belongs in the NFL. It's just, hey, you're not a starter. You don't need 40 snaps a game like which we saw against the Vikings. That's ridiculous. Now you put them where they could be effective. And so Randy Gregory, yeah, rotational guy. Kinlaw, rotational guy. Givens, Cleveland Farrell, rotational guys that can play to their strengths, go out there, all-out effort for 3 to 4 plays, you know, a series, whatever, then you get your aces back in. And so this just makes everybody better. And yeah, I see Drake Jackson on there. That's the one where I'm just like, man, I'm not going to be shocked if he's a healthy scratch here very, very soon. We saw it last year, you know, all the way down this stretch. And I'm not saying that he's done for the year. I think this bye week is good for him. He's got to figure some stuff out because his balance, which is crazy, is it's abysmal, and he's just not having any positive impact whatsoever on the game. He's on the ground more often than he's not. I don't want to give up on the kid yet. Debster, is he a bust? I don't want to go there yet, but he definitely has not lived up to the second-round pick status. But you can say this about a lot of people. Not his fault. He was drafted there, and we have not developed him to improve on his biggest weaknesses. Because with where he is right now, that dude needs to go to a 3-4 outside team and stand up, because that's probably where he's going to end up if he doesn't change something.
Yeah, and I mean, also no excuses for Drake Jackson because he has so much talent around him, and like I'm sure he could pick up some things, some techniques from them, but we're just not seeing it translate onto the field for him. The good news is, and like I felt like I was seeing him a lot on the field on Sunday. The good news is we'll be seeing much less of him going forward, right? So I don't know if he's a bust. Like I hate to say that about any player, much less when they've only been in the league like for as long as he has.
Yeah.
He's only had one full season and 8 games, right? So given that, I think it's too early to really say what Drake
Agreed.
Jackson is, what he's going to be, but it doesn't look good, right? So in the meantime, we can rest assured like he's not going to be out there. And so that definitely also improves the defensive line just from that standpoint as well. I do want to get to the super chat really quickly from Gammon Brown. Shout out Gammon. On the subject of accountability, what were your score predictions for 49ers Bengals? Also, will Feliciano play? I think he's underrated. So going back to my prediction, and this, I was able to give the prediction with the assumption that Brock Purdy would play. He ended up playing. So my prediction was, I'm trying to find it here as I'm like scrolling. 24-22 was my prediction. I predicted a close game. And, I thought the 49ers would come away with it. What about you, John?
Yeah, I had it close, not as close as you did, but yeah, I had the Niners winning a 1-score game. The offense, it just disappeared, and the defense definitely didn't do his job down the stretch. And, I'm going to constantly keep going back to this. Everybody talk about the defense, and rightfully so. Why are we not talking about the offense only scored 17 points a week,
Yeah.
3 weeks in a row?
Three
I
straight
just don't
weeks.
understand why nobody cares about that. I don't know. It's a concern. And I get it. We all kind of pick our battles, and I guess I've picked mine as well. But whenever I was a coach, praise goes up, praise goes down, blame goes up. That's just the way it goes. And so when bad things happen, you go to the top. And I don't know why we're stopping at the DC and not going to the offensive coordinator / head coach. And I love Kyle. I'm not trying to say he should be fired. I'm not a hot seat, Skip Bayless type of guy. That's not who I am really. But that's where the critique should start. That's where it should be. And I think that's, if the offense could just stop being so one-dimensional, then I think it fixes the defense. When the defense has to be out there and they could throw the ball 45 times and they're running 70 plays a game, yeah, you're going to be tired, especially when Nick Bosa's not playing. Establish the run, take some freaking time off the clock, give your defense a breather, give them good field position. That fixes so many issues. But when they're turning the ball over 3 times a game and you're not getting first downs, especially late in the game, you're just asking for the defense to let down. I mean, that's just, it's complimentary football, and we're playing the opposite of that currently.
Exactly. And I've been echoing that same sentiment for the past few days as well, because, I do feel like when Kyle spoke to the media after the game, he did have some accountability, right? Like I didn't feel like he was ducking the smoke or anything like that or putting all the blame on Steve Wilks, but the media certainly is. The fans certainly are. And so that's what I'm not really liking, because this is it isn't just Steve Wilks. Like, yes, he's the low-hanging fruit in this situation. But, the offense, no excuses there either. You got a lot of stars. You have Christian McCaffrey, and you're these last few games averaging like 3 yards a carry with him in the backfield. So that there's no excuses for that. I know Trent Williams and Debo are out. Yes, maybe that's part of the issue, but I needed to see some adjustments, right? I would have liked to see some adjustments in these last few games. Just haven't
Jordan
seen
Mason.
enough. Yeah, I mean, that's one. I know a lot of people have been talking about Jordan Mason here in the chat. Every single chat, there's like, why isn't Jordan Mason why didn't he get any opportunities? And it's like, yeah, I understand. I think there's things that we don't know there, that there's things when he doesn't have the ball that he's not doing well. That stuff irks Kyle Shanahan. That's why he's not there. It's as simple as that. So it's frustrating. We need to wonder what Jordan Mason's doing wrong that he's not getting on the field, right? Because I maybe that's the question we should be asking. But I appreciate always people's enthusiasm in the chat. I do want to just very quickly go back to the defense for this one final point, because earlier, we were talking about you mentioned Isaiah Oliver and him being a problem in coverage. That is a real problem. And I mean, that is kind of a Steve Wilks problem too, because that was a guy he thought was the best nickel corner available in free agency. And opposing teams have been perfect throwing in his coverage these last 4 games. 20 of 20 catches in his coverage last 4 games. Opposing quarterbacks seeing this on tape. They're loving that matchup all day. Chase 8 in the slot this past week. So I would expect that if he continues to be out there, he's going to continue to get targeted, right? And so the 49ers did have a chance, likely had every intention to bring in another corner at the 11th hour of the trade deadline. Nothing transpired. And so now the 49ers have no choice but to roll with who they have. So my question is, like, do Samuel Womack or Daryl Luter like get a chance when they come back from IR? And before you answer, let's just set the stage here. Womack was placed on IR with a knee injury September 16th. He was set to be out 6 to 8 weeks. It'll be 7 weeks since Womack was placed on IR this Saturday, November 4th. Oh, that'll be 7 weeks. Luter, the 5th-round rookie corner, was placed on the PUP list before training camp even started.
Yeah, rookie training camp.
With a bone bruise in his knee. And that one's weird, too, because from the PUP list, he could be removed at any time. And back in late July, John Lynch made it seem like, it was just going to be a few weeks, some point later in camp. We never saw him in camp. And so I'm not sure what happened, but I wouldn't be surprised if these next few weeks, 49ers start getting a lot of questions about, hey, like, any updates on Womack, Luter? Because, the fans are starting to wonder too. And so I'm sure the media is going to start asking as well, especially with the struggles of Isaiah Oliver.
Yeah, I mean, we were at training camp. See Daryl Luter out there doing every drill. No demand. You can't practice with the team, but you can work on the side field. And a lot of times he was the first one on the field. Dude looks fluid. He's doing all the workouts. Like, he looked good a while ago. I don't know what the medical whatever is, but we do know Shanahan loves to redshirt players. That's just what he does, whether that's Juwan Jennings, Kalia Davis. He just does it over and over and over again. And so I don't know. I want him back. He's going to be an outside guy. Now, the 49ers released 2 corners today. So I fully expect at least one, if not both. I hope both come back. But both of them are going to be outside guys. And I don't think Womack, Jimmy Ward, and I want to talk about Jimmy Ward a couple times here. Jimmy Ward on the Richard Sherman podcast said, just about a month ago, that the 49ers moved Samuel Womack out of the nickel spot because they didn't think he was aggressive enough, physical enough in the run game.
That.
And for Isaiah Oliver, with the one thing that he's great at, he is physical as hell in the run game, wraps up, amazing tackler, but you got to cover. And I understand whenever you talked about 20 of 20 receptions out of the slot, I just looked this up, and I tweeted this November 27th, so exactly this time last year. Jimmy Ward has allowed 24 of 24 receptions in a row whenever he came back from injury last year in the slot. And so, this is not a new issue. It's not a Steve Wilks issue. This is a D'Amico issue. The 49ers slot corner is one of the toughest responsibilities because we always put them in inside leverage, and the slot fade has torched every single guy we've had. I'm not trying to defend Isaiah Oliver, but everybody's like, man, we should have kept Jimmy Ward. And I love Jimmy Ward. Jimmy Ward didn't want to play slot. And so, I don't know what the answer is. I know it's not Isaiah Oliver in coverage. That is simple. But I also know the answer wasn't Jimmy Ward in coverage either for the first, few months. And then he transitioned. He got much better. But again, as soon as he had the chance, he ran away because he wanted to play safety. He did not want to play nickel. And, he's playing safety for the Texans, doing a hell of a job as he always has. I want Demo to slide inside. Can one of these other corners, outside corners, do that in just nickel situations only? We did this the first week of the season. And then Isaiah Oliver came in and started making plays. And, you go back to that Rams game. I don't think you win the Rams game without Isaiah Oliver. And he's been terrible since then in coverage for sure. But that dude made some great plays that game. It's been a long time since then. So we'll see what the answer is, but you got to change something. You can't keep rolling 26 out there in coverage. Can't do that.
Yeah, and that's a tough thing, right? Because if you mixed what Oliver does best and what Womack does best, you probably have the perfect marriage at nickel corner, the perfect corner for that situation. But because both of those guys lack something there, you're stuck with either one of them and missing out on something regardless, right? So at this point, like it has felt like they're just kind of waiting, hoping for Isaiah Oliver to figure it out and get back to, honestly, John, like I didn't watch Isaiah Oliver much, when he was with the Falcons. So I can't even say like I know what he's going to get back to doing.
They
Like,
moved him everywhere. They got him as an
yeah,
outside corner. Then they put him at nickel. Then they put him at safety. Then back to slot. And it's like, okay, he's got some skills that are so valuable. The length, the tackling, the aggressiveness for that body type is incredible. But yeah, you can only disguise somebody so much in coverage. And once
yeah,
that's up, we're playing the Jags, who have like 3 amazing slot wide receivers.
yeah.
You're going to see some bad things if 26 is still out there in coverage. This is going to happen.
The Dark Willow asks, is it possible to take Oliver out on obvious passing downs? Now, we see a lot of this in defensive line play, right? Like some guys aren't like three down linemen and you take them out or you put them in on those third downs. But you don't see that really with corners. Is there a reason that you don't really see that or wouldn't want to do that? Because otherwise, I mean, like it doesn't sound like a bad idea, but maybe I'm not thinking about everything here.
They flirted with that idea and talked about it in training camp, a big nickel and a small nickel. It's hard to – the problem is once you're on the field, it's pretty damn hard to rotate in and out. If the offense wants to keep you out there, they just don't sub. And so it's you can do it. It's just one of those things that is wonderful in theory, but whenever you get out there and the offense is just running plays and they're not subbing anybody, you can't get them out. I don't know what the long-term answer is there. I really don't. I want Demo there. Somebody's got to step up outside. Sure as hell ain't going to be Ambry Thomas. I think it's Womack should be the guy in my opinion. Now, Demo starts, and then on nickel, you bring in Samuel Womack, Agent Zero, kick Demo inside. Best of both worlds. I think we'll get back to that once Womack comes out, especially if Oliver does this one more week, because then it's just it's getting bad.
It can't be any worse, right? Like if they dabbled with that, having Womack on the outside, Lenore at the slot, like it really can't be any worse. So yeah, it wouldn't shock me at all if they tried that, if Wilks tried that, because at this point, I think Wilks knows, okay, the pressure is on. I got to figure something
Right.
out here. But of course, that does hinge on the availability of both of the guys we mentioned, Luter or Womack. I think we're in agreement that Womack probably the more likely of the two to get on the field first, just because he has a little more experience in that regard. All right, now let's pivot back to the offense here. I know we're not letting the offense off of the hook, and rightfully so. And so at the same time, though, I do want to talk about Brock Purdy because you talked about the turnovers. A lot of those turnovers are happening from Brock Purdy, right? And they're coming in inopportune times of the game when you're trying to get back into it. I mentioned on the Bully Ball podcast yesterday, JC, and I'm gonna shout him out again. Shout out JC. He tweeted out a couple weeks ago. He's like, when I watched Iowa State games, when Brock Purdy felt like he had to be the hero, that's when bad Brock showed up. And so we're kind of seeing that now. I don't want to say it's the end all be all of Brock Purdy, and that's what he's always going to be. He's still a very young quarterback, right? But as of right now, that's kind of what we're seeing. And John, you mentioned this isn't complimentary football. That's definitely not helping Brock Purdy either. And so he's kind of shouldering everything for the offense, especially late in the game when you're trying to get back into it. And so what are your thoughts on the turnovers? Like your reaction? Are you overreacting? Do you feel like you're underreacting a little bit? Like where are you on that?
I would say, and I'm going to use the words of George Kittle here. I said I had 2 favorite quotes. One was Fred Warner. The second one was George Kittle when he said, "We are not a good one-dimensional football team." And whenever you just go straight pass heavy, that's not Brock's strength. That's not Kyle's strength. And so there are quarterbacks in this league that whenever they go straight pass heavy, they're going to have success. And guess what? That's Kirk Cousins. Guess what? That's Joe Burrow. They're made for that. That is their strength. Brock Purdy ain't that yet. Maybe he can be,
Right.
but he's not there. Brock Purdy's throwing the ball 40 times a game. You're in major trouble. And so whenever it's just drop back, and and you're doing empty sets, you are just allowing this defense to disguise and carry everything, because you took away not only are you not running the ball, you took away even the threat of running the ball. And every time we go empty situation in those, I'm just like, good Lord, if it's a quick hitch, I understand. But we're doing these deep developing route concepts with no extra pass protection help and no run like disguise whatsoever. That's not who we are. And so you're asking Brock to play out of his skill set. You're asking, Kyle's doing this to himself. That's not his strength as a play caller. You've got to be able to disguise things. And so, this is where I get like, all right, this is the issue to me. Because if you could just keep running the ball and people are like, oh, but you're only averaging 3 yards a carry. No, you're not. You're not averaging 3 yards a carry. And if you look at even in the fourth quarter, a lot of those were quarterback sneaks that you kept running over and over again. Christian McCaffrey had 2 7+ yard runs in the fourth quarter, and then you didn't run it to him again. And so you've got to stay honest with the run game. They're 1-score possessions, and we just go pass heavy. And that's going to allow bad Brock to show up. Maybe eventually he could be the guy that could just say, hey, cool, we're going to throw the ball, 14 times in the fourth quarter every single time. And that's just who we are. We're just not there yet. Patrick Mahomes is there. Burrow's there. Kirk Cousins was there before the injury. Brock's not there yet. He's not that guy yet.
He's not that guy, pal. Joking. He very well could be that guy. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I think that's what we're seeing. Also, I think, as someone here, Ed, pointed out, they have film on Purdy now. The veteran DBs bait him. I've watched it a couple of times. I did kind of so one of the interceptions that happened on Sunday, there were 2 routes that seemed like oddly close to each other, which kind of kept the defender who eventually got that interception. It allowed him to pretty much defend both at the same time. And so that's why he was in position there to get that interception. But I do also feel, and I think we've been talking about it for some time too, like Brock Purdy has thrown a lot of turnover-worthy plays. This goes back to even last year. He's throwing more this year, I think, than he was last year, if I'm not mistaken. And negative regression, I think, in that regard was going to come, because like a lot of that was luck. It had to, right? So I think with all these interceptions happening, of course, defenses kind of know what to expect out of Brock, what he's looking at. And at the same time, I also think that, Brock Purdy now has to know, okay, maybe I'm not going to get away with that anymore. So that comes with the learning process, right? That comes with all like young quarterbacks. We heard about all the interceptions that he was throwing in training camp, and for that same reason, right? Like, you're trying things. You're also going up against a really good defense, 49ers defense, and who knows, maybe the coverage issues were showing up even then. But
Isaiah Oliver's were, that's for sure, in training camp. Good Lord.
Yeah, but yeah, so maybe now that he's figured that out, because he started the season pretty good, several weeks without throwing an interception, right? So he was able to dial it back from training camp to then the regular season. So now that those interceptions are starting to go the wrong way in the regular season, maybe he could dial it back again and say, I'm not going to get away with that. Let me try this instead.
Yeah, and when we look at the whole season in perspective, these 3 weeks are losses for a reason, and you turn the ball over. And that's the main reason for losses, not the defense. It's the turnovers. But Brock Purdy has 12 touchdown passes this year and 5 interceptions. That's better than any quarterback touchdown interception ratio all the way back to like Colin Kaepernick days. Like, it's better than Jimmy's ever done, 12-5. Like, he's never been at that type of number. Maybe he has once, but it's not like Brock. Okay, so we have 3 games in a row. Fourth quarter, turns the ball over, whatever else. Comes back out against the Vikings after the loss. First 3 quarters was dealing. I mean, that dude was balling out. And then it fell off. Oh, shout out to my man, Will. I see you there, Will. And so then the interceptions happen whenever you went pass heavy only, whatever else. Comes back out against the Bengals. Man, during the first 3 quarters, that game was not on Brock. Brock was playing some damn good ball. Yeah. He was putting the ball in spots, all those different things. Get to the fourth quarter. What do? Pass heavy Kyle shows up. interceptions. And you talked about that dagger concept. And Kyle even said, we ran that 3 times. You run one clear out route where the guy doesn't even turn around and look at the ball. And then you just run one underneath. So it's a natural rub route that takes place at about 14 yards downfield. And you ran it once, it worked. You ran it twice, almost worked. Ran it 3 times, they got it. And so they went back and did that. And so I don't know. The decision-making process for me, he has had one knucklehead play 3 weeks in a row where it's just like, what in the world are you thinking?
The one on Sunday, the one on Sunday was like he looked like he was just gonna roll out, maybe go out of bounds, and last second he decides to, maybe try to get that over. I think it was Kittle that he was trying to target there. And he didn't even see the defender. He was right in front of him, or didn't, he thought he was gonna get it over the defender, but I mean,
and so those plays, every quarterback does them. And Brock still, I understand the turnovers are huge. You just can't do that in the fourth quarter situations. And as I said, Brock isn't him yet. Yeah, he's our quarterback, and I hope he's our quarterback for 10 years. I think he's great, but he hasn't developed I'm just going to throw these guys into a win. We haven't seen that yet. And I don't think we have to see that if the freaking head coach just keeps a balanced playbook, or at least the threat of a balanced playbook. Brock's going to be just fine. I'm very happy that he's our quarterback, and there's no hot seat or Sam Darnold time. I don't believe in any of that. It's just keep it balanced. That's his strength.
Yeah, and this is a great comment here. Brock does need to clear up some of his errors, but people hold him to veteran standards. Don't give him the credit of playing like one when he does. I think this hits the nail on the head, and it's tough because when he's good, he plays so well that we kind of forget that he's so young, because I don't know, there's so much, I guess, I don't want to say volatility, because it's really not like that volatile. It's not like a roller coaster with him. But he has these really high highs, and we see it, right? So, and I know that's why a lot of people are like, it's crazy to compare him to Jimmy Garoppolo. I did it as a joke. I certainly don't think he's anywhere close to what Jimmy Garoppolo was.
Agreed.
He's certainly better than that. But yeah, I think people just simply forget how young he is and how much he still has to learn. And let's not forget, there was some reason he was, Mr. Irrelevant, right? He was a 7th round pick. So I think we just forget that. And sometimes we need to put that into perspective a little bit.
Real quick, I just want to I think I was the one that said, Jimmy G's never had these touchdown to interception ratio because Brock's so far ahead. So I apologize if I did that, and not trying to throw shots at Jimmy or whatever else. That's not the goal there. Just saying, it's not like we're getting bad quarterback play. We're getting good quarterback play. It's just fourth quarter pressure time where the quarterbacks matter most, like fourth quarter comebacks. This is what we monitor. He's got none.
Yeah,
he's got none. And so we haven't seen him do that. That's something that's got to be developed, and we'll get there.
He seems to be good in any other situation.
Any other.
besides that. And as Dark Willow says, his mistakes do seem to be correctable, and that's a good sign, right? And like I said, I think it's really just about, Brock saying to himself, you know what? I can't risk that. That's not the type of risk that my team needs right now at this point in the game. You live to see another down. That was the one that was frustrating about the first interception he threw, because it was like, you had another down after that. You didn't need to force it. So those are the small things that you learn over time. And
right,
a lot of the times you learn those lessons the hard way, right? So we're seeing it unfold, and we're seeing Brock Purdy learn in real time. But the good news is, and I know the tweet that I'm showing here is very small text, so I'm going to read it off for you guys. It says, interesting to note that the 49ers still have one of the best pass offenses ever tracked by DVOA, even after 3 losses. Pass offense DVOA was 81.9% in the first 5 games, still 40.2% in the last 3 games. And on the right, you see the graphic here, the best pass offenses tracked with DVOA through the first 8 weeks of the season, going back to 1981. And the 49ers are up there at 65%.
The only 49ers appearance on this chart.
That is also notable too, right? Because we compare this offense to other great offenses in the past. Certainly from 1981, there were a lot of good teams, right? For the 49ers, a lot of good offenses. Yet this 2023 offense has really good pass offense DVOA. So, I mean, it's not the end of the world for the offense. They do have some things to clean up, which we've talked about here and there these last few days on the show as well. So that's what the bye week is for. I think having Trent Williams and Debo back is going to be huge for them. I almost feel like Kyle was sort of just bracing himself for these games, hoping like he wouldn't have to adjust to those guys being out because they're such unique players. They're one of one. I mean, honestly. So I think he was just bracing himself, hoping they can come away with those wins. They didn't come away with win. Okay, you got those guys back probably after the bye week. So the offense should look much better after the bye, I would expect, which should help the defense too, because going back to that complimentary football, it goes at granular level, but it also goes at that higher level too. And there were times in that game against the Bengals where the defense did tighten up. They did give the offense those opportunities. It was the turnovers at the end that really hurt them. So with Debo, Trent back, things like that should help. It should help, the team overall get over their woes. But yeah, a lot of work to do in this bye week, John. And like if you had to choose just one top priority for the 49ers to address in this bye, what would it be?
Tackling and blitz or coverage disguising. Stop telegraphing, showing early on what you're doing, and just sticking in that. That's what I do not enjoy. So disguise the coverages just a little. I mean, literally just a little bit something. So that's just not like I'm watching at the games and I'm just like, oh, cover 4, we're to cover 6, roll the straight side. And it's just like, you can tell as soon as they break the huddle, it's just like, oh, that's what we're doing. And the other teams know that too.
Yeah, I'm gonna like cheat a little bit and use like an umbrella you know option here. I'm gonna say go back to basics, and so of course that covers a lot of different things. Tackling would be one of them. I mean, clearly some technique uh has gone awry here in these last few weeks. But that's correctable too. And so they need to just get back to the basics, and that should help the defense a ton as well. I mean, let these guys on the defensive line just pin their ears back and get to the quarterback too, right? Yep. Like that, you need that. You need that so bad, and that's going to help your secondary as well. We hope that the secondary will look better in the second half of the season, but of course, without the pass rush, it's going to be hard to do that, right? So hopefully they could get that going. And I think on offense too, they can go back to basics as far as like the run blocking goes. Trent Williams, as I mentioned, that'll go a long way to helping them out. Aaron Banks is going to be out for a few weeks, even after the bye. So hopefully, him being gone and John Feliciano can step in and it's next man up. So hopefully he could step in and step up, and we won't notice that Aaron Banks isn't there. Because, I mean, Aaron Banks was struggling at times too with these last few weeks. I think part of that has to do with Trent being out, right? We talk all the time about, Trent can elevate the play of any guy that's standing next to him. So I think for that reason, I'm not too worried about Feliciano. So I think the run game will look a lot better coming out of the bye week too.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's why I record with you and Wayne. You guys make me way better. And so y'all the Trent Williams to my Aaron Banks. And whenever you guys aren't around, things are going to struggle a little bit. But I believe I have all the confidence in the world in Feliciano. He's got so much experience. He's a lot more aggressive. He's a little bit more of a Burford style blocker than he is a Banks style blocker. And
I don't know if I feel good about that, but okay.
Well, it's just the aggressiveness. He's much more of an attacker, whereas Banks is much more of a stalemate, stay in the way type of guy. They're just different philosophies. Both work, but he is more aggressive. So whenever you bring Trent back, who's the most aggressive ever, I expect a little bit more movement up front.
Yeah, I think so too. And we're getting some, things that fans here in the comments would make a top priority too. I like that communication from Keith. I think that's definitely one on the defense. A lot of people talking about, Steve Wilks being on the sideline, not to be the cheerleader, but to communicate better with those guys on the defense in game, after play. What are you seeing? Sure. That's a good point. So, I mean, we will see if they make that change. Again, there's no silver bullet, I don't think, for this defense. So we'll see what changes.
If there was, it was Chase
People-
Young, and we're going to find out.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll see. All right. Well, John, I think, we got a good show here. I appreciate all of you guys who tuned in on a Wednesday morning. Appreciate it. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Not just my video, not just my channel, but John's as well. So make sure that you guys check out his channel. What's the name of your channel, John?
Yeah, it's 49ers Rush. That's it.
49ers
49ers Rush. Check us out wherever
Yeah.
you listen. And yeah.
Appreciate all the love, guys. But for now, have a good rest of your Wednesday, folks. Peace.